My poor little pins. I've just been running out of some of my most essential art supplies on this trip. That was a really great video. I put a lot of time into summarizing the most essential tips. So for those of you who are just watching that video premiere, welcome to the live. I know it's going to probably take some of you a few seconds to get here. And for those of you who didn't watch the premiere, I'll put the link in the chat and you can go back and watch it later. But now I wanted to hear some ideas from the community and just share with you live some of the stuff that I've learned since I made that video. So for example, one of my absolute favorite art supplies has been running out on this trip. And I have a limited amount of supplies I can carry with me. Back there, you can see my backpack, and I have to carry everything in there. So that has been a really good way to force me to focus on essentials and figure out what are the supplies that I really need. Meanwhile, that I've run through 3 of these, and for whatever reason, I just keep them. And I'm afraid to throw them out in case, someday I need to really just squish every last little drop out of here. Like it might be able to scratch a few more lines on paper. So I haven't even given up completely on these. I haven't thrown them out yet. But meanwhile, here is another tool that I brought along with me that takes up more space, arguably, and was definitely more expensive. But here's one of my, real brushes that I bought when I was doing more different art. And this is an actual true hair. It's Kolinsky sable. So this is actually hair from some animal. It's a fancy, versatile watercolor brush. But I haven't even, and I thought maybe I would use it at some point on this trip. Maybe I would use it in Galapagos or something for doing more landscapes. I haven't used it once. And I think that the main mental block for me is carrying a container with water while trying to nature journal in the field. So while I haven't used that at all, I have been obviously using my water brushes quite a bit. And these are the normal water brushes. Post in the comments. I know sometimes this can be a controversial topic, but some people love their real brushes. And I just came from a science illustration class where they were insisting on real brushes. And it's also in some parts of the world not that easy to get these water brushes. So post in the comments of the live chat whether you use water brushes like this or you use actual traditional brushes. And just want to say hi to people here in the audience. I see Alexandra Walters is here, Jean is here, and Annetta is here. Both of them were in the premiere and then moved on over to here. So that's great. Post in the comments what your whether you use a water brush like one of these. Some people consider it sacrilege in the watercolor community, or whether you use traditional brushes. Post that in the comments over there, and I'll start going through some more things that I didn't mention in the video. One thing that I didn't mention in the video is lights. So I find right now, even in this room that I'm renting, I've been needing to use extra lights while I'm working on pages at home. So even if you're not nature journaling at night in the outdoors, some type of lamp can be really useful. This is one I've had for quite a long time. Unfortunately, I can't find anything quite exactly like this one these days. A lot of them are bigger and bulkier. Some are rechargeable, which is better than this one. But this small light can clip right onto my nature journal and allows me to nature journal at night, for example, or in low light conditions. And it's really lightweight, and I can use it even at home. Here's an example of a watercolor painting I did while using this lamp. It was really early in the morning, and the sun was coming up behind this island in the Galapagos, and I wanted to do a landscape Ito, and that wouldn't have been possible if I didn't have this little clip-on lamp. So I'm going to check out the comments here. It looks like a lot of people use both. Jean is not using watercolor at all, so that's a good point to make, is that some people might not use either. Alexander prefers traditional and travels with synthetic and keeps the Kolinsky at home. Thanks, everybody, for all of that information. Panaina uses a combination of both. Cool. Oh, and then over here on Facebook, Laura says she likes to use the water brushes, but is still just a beginner. Cool. Well, thanks for joining in, and thanks for that. Next, I want to hear what people's worst art supply purchase was. Over on the original video, the premiere, I think it was Gene shared a really funny one. But let me know what has been your worst purchase in terms of art supplies. I'm going to keep going through some of the supplies that have been most useful for me on this trip. And this is one that I'm also running out of. So this is a type of rubber band that comes on broccoli and asparagus and stuff like that. And this might not be, this has so many uses in your nature journaling kit. So for example, I could take all of these pins that I'm saving, even though they're dead, and I could keep them more organized with this rubber band. And these rubber bands usually last for a long time. I think I brought 2 with me. And one of the main things that I use them for is actually on my watercolor palette. So this might not work the same for you if you don't have a watercolor palette or it's a different one. But I have this mixing area here on the side. And what I like to do is put a piece of a scrap paper, hopefully the same paper from my nature journal, and then I use this rubber band to hold it in place. And the amazing thing is these rubber bands are really strong, but they're quite flat. So it's possible for me to close this and the whole palette still closes normally, which is great. And I've been unable to find this type of rubber band in Ecuador. I went around to several farmers markets asking, and they kept getting confused because I wasn't asking about the produce, I was asking about the rubber bands. So these are really useful. These are the only ones I've been able to get in Ecuador. But a couple rubber bands in your nature journal kit. And while we're talking about miscellaneous stuff like that, I highly recommend having like a small Ziploc bag. So this can be used for a lot of things. I find it just really useful to have an extra Ziploc bag. You can bring chocolate in it, then you can eat the chocolate and then have the bag left over for, like, if you find any leaves or want to make a collection, or if something's leaking in your kit, like if your fountain pen is leaking or you want to keep something dry, like a small sketchbook, you could use this Ziploc bag for all of those things. So it's an amazingly versatile thing that hardly takes up any space. And I think it's great to have in your nature journal kit. Jeanette adds watercolor when they get home. That's a great idea. Good strategy there. That simplifies what you need to bring in the field. A couple other miscellaneous things, and I'm going to show you how I've used these. A couple other miscellaneous things that I've been using on this trip, even though I've had to go so minimalist. You can actually buy glue sticks like this almost anywhere in the world, I think. And I bought this at a stationery store in Ecuador. And I think I bought this tape as well, which I really like because it's very lightweight. And I've been using both of those for sort of more junk journaling type techniques. So for example, here on this page, I have some sketches I did in a waterproof sketchbook during a night hike. And what I found is I don't like to have, after a trip, a bunch of separate sketchbooks. I don't like to have separate sketchbooks in general. So like this right here. Oh, Angie's joining in. Hi, Angie. Here's another small sketchbook. And I have even another one. I don't see it right now. But I have these different ones. And I find it annoying when a story or a trip is spread across multiple journals. So what I started doing is cutting out those pages. So I completely cut the pages out of the waterproof sketchbook, and I use tape to basically create this insert, and I have multiple pages. It's almost like a trick for getting more pages, more surface area in your nature journal. And all you need is tape. I have a small pair of scissors and a knife that I use for cutting the page, but I've been using this tape to add those things in. And I'll show you one other example of that. Here's another example where I got some sketches in a mini journal, and I wanted to put those into my big journal. So I cut them out, and they tell the story of arriving at this research station. So that tape has been really useful for that. And I'll show you how I'm using the glue stick for some collage elements, which I'm doing in the front and back covers. So I'm gluing in maps and things like that. And this is something that I never used to do, but it's really easy and fun. You can cut up brochures, cut up maps, and just having a little piece of glue stick in your kit doesn't take up that much space. Could be really good if you have some more hesitations around drawing, or you feel like your drawings aren't good enough yet. And let's see, which products or materials should I talk about next? Another thing I'll talk about, because this is something that I've been having issues with, is paper towels. What I've been having to do now while I'm traveling is I basically, when I'm at restaurants and stuff, I try to find the best paper towels and then stick a bunch in my pockets, and then use those for cleaning my water brush in the field. I do have one of those arm sock things, but in the tropics, it's always getting really wet and staying wet, and it's kind of gross. So I've mainly been using paper towels. I am going to post the link to the original video where I go through how to choose the best supplies. But thanks for everybody joining in. Here's a really good question from Jean. I would love to hear what other people do about that. I actually do need to put together a new first aid kit, but usually if I'm very far from, I'm usually not that far from civilization, actually. So even though I'm in the Amazon right now, it's not that far. There's towns almost everywhere. So I try not to carry too much first aid stuff, but I do have a compass. And if I go on a longer trip, I have my other backpack with me that has my first aid and sort of toiletry type stuff. Great question. Thanks, Jean, for asking that. And the compass that I use is just on my phone. I never used to use this, but I've been adding it to my metadata. So I talked about this in one of my recent videos, but on your phone, in the compass app, you should be able to get elevation and coordinates. So that is a good app to have on your phone and can add some information. And I do always have a knife, but not a tomahawk. Good question, James. And all right, I'm going to show you a couple more things here. And one of those is this page right here that I did completely with the fountain pen and a little bit of watercolor. So this fountain pen was probably, of all the unessential things that I've brought on my trip, it's probably one of the ones that I've had the most fun with. It's a really great tool, and it's really fun. It can be really fun to draw with, especially when I'm having a mental block. So this is the Sailor Fude de Monin that I've talked about a lot before. And as you might know, the ink cartridges that come with this are not waterproof, and I want waterproof so that I can do watercolor over it. So I've actually brought an entire jar of ink with me on this trip. Ooh, look how it's reflecting. What is it reflecting? This ink is probably the most dangerous thing that I brought with me on this trip. But every time before I travel, I wrap it up in a bunch of padding before I go. One other thing that is non-essential that I think is could be good, especially in rainy places, is to have a very small. This is a very small dry bag. So in a worst case scenario, my nature journal would fit inside of here. So when I do like river crossings and stuff like that, I put my nature journal in here, and I put my cell phone in a plastic bag just to make sure those things don't get damaged. So those are a couple other things there. I talked about my chair in that video and a bunch of other stuff. So thank you everybody for joining in on this live. I'm experimenting with this format where we see the video premiere, and then afterwards there's time for like discussion and people can share things. I'm also getting revved up for September. So as you probably know, the Wild Wonder Nature Journaling Conference is coming up in September. And like last year, I'm going to try to take every single class, go to every single talk, and then at the end of the day, do a recap about highlights and stuff like that. So if you're trying to decide about whether or not going to Wild Wonder, or you just want to get sort of like a summary or get a feeling for some of the instructors, I'm going to try to provide as much of that information as possible on the Nature Journal Show to help you make better decisions and get the most out of this amazing nature journaling conference that's coming up. So I'm going to try to interview some of the instructors. And I think next Wednesday, I'm going to go through the schedule and I'm going to look at the schedule so you can follow along with me, learn about the schedule, what classes are being offered, who the instructors are, which of them I've taken classes with before, and all that kind of stuff. So September will be really fun, and it's just around the corner. I can't believe it. So thanks for joining in tonight. It was great to see you all here in the live, and there will be a lot more lives to come. All right, bye everybody. Bye.